All right. We're now going to learn the daf for Shabbos Yud Zayin Iyar. We're going to learn daf Lamed Beis, starting a new perek. This perek is going to be Chazara for us because we're learning this perek in Iyun already. I want to mention the following. We find in Chassidus, and really in Kabbalah, the Mailav Lag BaOmer, that Lag BaOmer is Hoid Shebahoid. And the celebration of Lag BaOmer is that we're already finishing the spheres of Gufa, which means that every day of spheres Omer corresponds to another sphere, Chesed Shebechesed, Gvura Shebechesed, Tifer Shebechesed, etc. And every sphere also corresponds to a part in our body. And according to the Kabbalah, according to what we say on Erev Shabbos, what we're going to say today by Mincha, Pasach Aliyah, so every sphere corresponds to a part of a body. And the spheres Til Hoid are parts of our body that are for ourselves. So you have your hands and your feet, your body, your these are Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hoid. Yisoid and Malchus are spheres that are considered levar migufa. They're from outside the body because Yisoid is on the reproductive organs, which are for something outside of yourself, and Malchus is speech, the point of speech is also for something outside of yourself. So we're already finished with the Lag BaOmer this Sunday. We're going to celebrate that we already finished with rectifying all the spheres and shining all the spheres that are connected to our bodies for ourselves. So that's one of the big steps. The first half, let's say, of Spheres Omer is already completed. Keneged Zeh, we have in Masechah Sotah that the first 6 prakim of Sotah are dealing with the halachas of the Sotah, and the last 3 prakim, Zayin, Ches, and Tes, Elu Ne'amar, and Meshuach Mulchama, and Egla Arufa, are prakim that don't deal with Sotah at all. We're going to have, I think, the mitzvah of Sotah is going to be mentioned twice, I think, for the rest of the Masechta, briefly. It's not going to be discussions, because the way that Rebbe put together Teresh Bal Peh is that he wanted to make everything into a system. So he made 6 darim. You have Zra'im, Moed, Nashim. Every halacha falls into a certain category, but there's some halachas that there isn't really a place for it, right? You have Zra'im, Moed, Nashim, Zikin, Kachim, Tara is about the agriculture and holidays and marriage and divorce. You have Nizikin is damages, Kachim is holy things in the Beis Hamikdash, and Taras is purity. So, like, for example, where does Hilchas Tefillin fall into there? So what Rebbe did is that he would write Mishnayos, and he would go off on tangents in certain places to fill in the other mitzvahs that don't have explanation. So, for example, Hilchas Tefillin appears in Maseches Menachos. Menachos has nothing to do with Tefillin. Menachos is about the Karban Mincha, the Beis Hamikdash. But he was able to find a tangent that he could, right, Mezuzah, Sefer Torah, all those things are scattered throughout Shas in different places. Where even Gemara is like that also. Gemara also, they want to discuss everything, but not everything has a set place. So Hanukkah, for example. So Hanukkah goes in Masechah Shabbos after the discussion about lighting Shabbos candles, so the Gemara goes on to the whole story of Hanukkah. Meaning there's no Masechta for Hanukkah. It doesn't fit into anywhere else in Shas, so that's where... So similar thing we're going to find for the rest of the Masechta. These are mitzvahs. We're going to discuss 15 mitzvahs, which Lav Dafka find places in Shas. Some of them are discussed elsewhere, but some of them are not. And Rebbe decided to put them here because we're going to see a connection between all these 15 mitzvahs, and that's going to be the topic of the rest of the Masechta. It's going to be very geschmack at the end of the Masechta. There's going to be discussions on these mitzvahs that we don't get discussions in other places. We're going to have a lot of Agadata. And let's jump right in. Elu Ne'amorin B'Chaloshin. The following mitzvahs, the following 7 mitzvahs, can be done in any language. Parsha Sotah, this is the connection to Sotah. It's going to start with this, and then from there we're going to go to other things. Parsha Sotah, during the Sotah process, the Kohen, we spoke about the Shvuah, we spoke about the Allah, we spoke about these in Perek Beis or Gimel, about the things that the Kohen makes the woman swear, and she says Amen, Amen. So those psukim, so they say psukim, they could be said in any language. And I just want to point out, remember we learned the famous big machlokes Rashi and Tosfos about what the girsa of the Mishnah is. Rashi holds that it's Elu Ne'amarim B'chol Lashon. The following 7 mitzvahs could be said in any language, which means that even if you speak English, you could say it in Hebrew, you could say it in French, you could say it in Russian. Doesn't matter which language you're saying it in, as long as in a language it means that thing. And Tosfos' girsa was Elu Ne'amarim B'lshon Noam. It has to be in a language that you understand, and we know that, and we learned that maybe it could even mean that if you don't understand Hebrew, you can't daven Shemona Esrei in Hebrew according to Tosfos because you don't understand that language. Okay. So Parsha Sotah is number 1. Number 2 is Vidoi Meiser, Uvidoi Meiser. Vidoi Meiser, we spoke about, is in year number 4 and year number 7 of the Shemitah cycle, is the end of the 2 mini cycles within the Shemitah cycle. Within the 7-year cycle, you have year 1 and 2 are Meiser Sheni, year 3 is Meiser Ani, so that's one cycle. Then you have 4 and 5 are Meiser Sheni, Year 6 is Meiser Ani, that's cycle number 2. So the year after every cycle, after every mini cycle, the Torah says in Parshas Kisavai, you need to come to the Beis Hamikdash on Erev Pesach, and you need to do Vidui Meiser. You need to declare that you did all the Meisers properly, and we ask the Eibishter to bless us, and that's another mitzvah, the Vidui, the declaration that you gave all the Meisers, can be in any language. Next, Kriya Shema, the mitzvah to say Shema. We had a whole discussion, D'Oraisa, D'Rabbanan, or what exactly is the mitzvah to say Shema, which paragraphs do we have to say? Point is, that could also be in any language. Utfila, that's the Amidah, the Shemana Esrei that we say every day. Uberchas HaMazen, the benching after the meals. Ushvuas HaEdos, Shvuas HaEdos is a mitzvah in Parshas Vayikra where it talks about if someone has a court case and he knows that someone else knows testimony about him. So he has the right to bring that guy to Beis Din and have him testify for his case. And if the guy denies that he knows any testimony, so the litigant has a right to make the guy swear. And if that guy swears falsely, so he has to bring, and then he admits it later, he has to bring karbanos, the chatas elaviyeret, we spoke about this, and that's from the end of Parshas Vayikra. And the halach is that no matter what language he said to swear in, no matter what language he swore in, if the Shvuas HaEdos was in any language, that has the chalais of a Shvuas HaEdos, and if he admits it, he's going to have to bring a karban. Then we had Shvuas HaPikoden. The last of the 7 mitzvahs that are in any language is Shvuas HaPikoden, which is if a man gives something to his friend to watch, and he comes back to him and he says, I don't know where it is, so the owner is able to make the guy swear that he didn't steal it, and that's called Shvuas HaPikoden. Pikoden is a collateral or something that the guy was watching, and he has the right to make him swear. And if he swore falsly in any language, no matter what language it was, so we have the Asham Gzeles that he has to bring, also discussed in the end of Parshas Vayikra. Beautiful. So those 7 mitzvahs are in any language. Then says the Mishnah, Ve'elu na'amarim b'lashon HaKodesh. The following 8 mitzvahs can be said only in Lashon HaKodesh. Number 1 is Mikra Bikurim. Mikra Bikurim is you bring Bikurim from Shavuos till Chanukah. Mikra Bikurim you do from Shavuos till Sukkot, which is that when you bring the Bikurim, there's a portion of the Torah. The Torah says you have to say Arami Avedavi, etc. at the beginning of Parshas Kisavai, discussing how the Eibishter took us out of Mitzrayim and the Eibishter gave us this beautiful land, and now now I have brought finally the fruits of my land to the Eibishter, and you give it to the Kohen, and that's part of the mitzvah of Bikurim is Mikra Bikurim, the declaration that you make when you bring Bikurim, thanking Hashem for all the miracles He did for us. More about Mikra Bikurim on Amud Beis, and that has to be Dafke and Lashon HaKodesh. V'chalitza, number 2 is Chalitza. Chalitza is when a man dies without any children, so the brother-in-law is commanded to marry the deceased's wife, and if the man's brother, he's commanded to marry the deceased's wife, and if they don't want to get married, so there's a mitzvah called chalitza, which is that the girl goes in front of the Beis Din, takes off the guy's right shoe, takes a special shoe off of his right foot, she spits in front of him, and she says psukim. We're going to learn about this in the Mishnah itself, and those psukim have to be in Lashon HaKodesh. Next, brachos uklales is the mitzvah in Parshas Kisavai also, that when the Yidden come into Eretz Yisrael, we're going to learn about this in the Mishnah at length, they're going to have to go to Har Gerizim and Har Evel, and they're going to have a bunch of blessings and curses, which the Torah describes in Parshas Kisavai. There's 11 curses that the Torah says. We're going to learn in the Mishnah that it really was blessings and curses, and those the Levium would say to the people, and those had to be in Lashon HaKodesh. That's a one-time mitzvah that only happened once in history. Next, Birchas Koyanim, the blessings the Koyanim give the Jewish nation. In the Beis Hamikdash, it was after every Karban Tzibur, so it was every day in the Beis Hamikdash. And outside of Eretz Yisrael, we have it also. We do it only on happy days, on Yom Tovim. So Birchas Koyanim, when the Koyanim bless the people, that has to be in Lashon HaKodesh. Next, to Birchas Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol, we're going to learn a Mishnah later in the Perek. After the Avodah on Yom Kippur, he would lay in the Torah in front of everyone, and after he would lay in the Torah, he would lay in different portions. He would lay in Parshas Achrei, he would lay in the portion about Yom Kippur from Parshas Emor, then he would lay in the Karbonis, the Musafim for Yom Kippur from Parshas Pinchas Baal Peh, and afterwards he would say 8 brachas, similar to how we make a bracha after we lay in the Torah, but he would say 8 brachas, and those had to be Lashon HaKodesh. Next, Parshas HaMelech. Parshas HaMelech is the parsha of the king, which is that every 7 years on Maitzoi Shemitah, at the end of Shemitah, on Sukkot, so the Sukkot of the first year of the cycle, it was called Hakel. They would have a mitzvah that would bring everyone together, and it's lav dafka the first year, because if it's Yovel, then Hakel will be Yovel, and there's a machlekes Tana whether Yovel is counted as the first year or whether it's not. But the point is they would bring everyone together to the Beit HaMikdash, men, women, children, and the king would lay portions of Parshas Dvarim, of Sefer Dvarim, and that was in Lashon HaKodesh. Parshas Eglah Arufa we're going to learn about in the 9th parak, which is a mitzvah in Parshas Shoftim, the end of Shoftim, that if a dead body is found in the middle of nowhere, and they don't know who killed him, so the Bezdin comes out to measure, the Bezdin Agadol, they measure to what the closest city is, and that city has to get an atonement, because we're assuming that they're the ones that if they would have helped him, this guy wouldn't have died, and they have to decapitate a eglah, a calf, and there's the Chevra wash their hands, and the Kohanim over there have to say, Psukim Kapar Lamche Yisrael Asher Padisa Hashem, they're asking Hashem to atone for the Jewish nation, for the innocent blood that was spilled, and those Psukim have to be in Lashon HaKodesh. And finally, Mashuach Milchama B'Shah Hashem Medaber Laham, also in Parsha Shoftim, and this is going to be the topic of the 8th parak in Sotah, is the Mashuach Milchama, is the anointed one of the wars. He was a kohen who was designated to go hype up the soldiers when they would go out to war, and there's psukim that he has to say, described in Parsha Shoftim, Al Yerach Levavchem, don't be scared, Ki Hashem Elokeichem Ha'elechim Achem, Hashem is going to fight for you, and he's going to win the war, and you guys shouldn't be scared. So those psukim are in Lashon HaKodesh. Those are 8 mitzvahs that are Lashon HaKodesh. Beautiful. So now, says the Mishnah, Mikra Bikurim Ketzad. How do we know that Mikra Bikurim has to be in Lashon HaKodesh? Because it says in the pasuk in Parshas Kisaveh about Mikra Bikurim, Ve'anisa ve'amarta l'fnei Hashem Elokecha, you should answer and you shall say before Hashem your God. That's how it starts, the Mikra Bikurim. And then Ula'alanu Emer, there's another pasuk in Parshas Kisaveh that says Ve'anu halviim ve'amru, about brachos uklalis, about the Leviim by Har Grizim and Har Eival. It says that they should answer and they should say. So you have the same 2 words, Ve'anu ve'amru. So Ma'ala Alan b'Lashon HaKodesh, just like by the Leviim, we know that it has to be in Lashon HaKodesh. How do we know? We're going to see in the Gemara. But the point is, by the brachos uklalis, we know it has to be in Lashon HaKodesh. So Afkan, so too here, by Mikra Bikurim b'Lashon HaKodesh, it should be Lashon HaKodesh. Beautiful. Next, Chalitza Ketzad. How do we know that Chalitza has to be Lashon HaKodesh? The psukim by Chalitza, because it says in the pasuk ve'ansa ve'amra, and she should answer and she should say. We see again the same 2 words, ve'ansa ve'amra, aniya and amira. Ula'alanu emer ve'anu alviim ve'amru. By brachos uklalis it says aniya and amira. Ma'alalam b'Lashon HaKodesh, just like brachos uklalis has to be in Lashon HaKodesh. Afkan so too here, by chalitza b'Lashon HaKodesh it should be in Lashon HaKodesh. That is the Tanakama. However, Rabbi Yehuda has a different source that chalitza should be in Lashon HaKodesh, because it says in the pasuk ve'ansa ve'amra kacha. The pasuk basically says, "V'ansa v'amra," she should answer and say, "Kacha ye'yasa li'ish asher le'ivnes beisach." If such shall be done to a man who refuses to build his brother's house. However, Rabbi Yehuda lanes the pasuk a little differently. He takes out the comma and he says, "V'ansa v'amra kacha," and she should answer and say, "Kacha like this." And kacha, it has to be like this. Ad shetoymar b'lashon hazeh. She has to say it mamish in the same lashon like this, exactly how it's written in the Torah. And in the Torah, we know it's written lashon hakodesh. So too, when she says it by the mitzvah, it should be in lashon hakodesh. Next. Brachos uklalos, keep the doors open, come back quickly. Brachos uklalos, then we have the mitzvahs, the mitzvah of the brachos uklalos that the Leviim had to do by Har Grizim and Har Eival. Ketzad, how do we know that it's Lashon HaKodesh, and exactly what was the story, what happened? So the Mishnah now goes on to say the story of the brachos uklalos. Darshaning, we're going to have to discuss in the Mishnah how it fits all into the psukim. The point is, as like, Kevan Shavru Yisrael Sa Yarden, when the Yidden crossed the Yarden on Yud Nisan together with Yeshua ben Nun, and the 40th year since Yitzias Mitzrayim, Ubo El Har Grizim ve'el Har Eival. So they fought some wars. They fought in Yericho. They fought in Ai. After those 2 wars, they went to fulfill the mitzvah in Parshas Kisaveh. They go to Har Grizim and Har Eival. Where are they? Shebe Shemron. They were in Shemron, this range, this area of Eretz Yisrael. Shebetzad Shemron is really a city, but it's referring to the whole area. Shebetzad Shechem. These 2 mountains, Har Grizim and Har Eival, are right near Shechem. Shechem is the valley in between Har Grizim and Har Eival. Shebe Eitzel Eilene Moira, they are right next to the oaks of Moira. Shanamar, like it says in the pasuk in Parshas Re'eh, Haloi Hema Be'ever HaYarden. V'goymer, those 2 mountains, Har Grizim and Har Eival, we're going to discuss this all in the Gemara, are Be'ever HaYarden, the other side of the Jordan River. Achrei Derech Mavai Hashem, with a lot of descriptions. We're going to discuss why we need all these descriptions, and that's how we know that where Har Grizim and Har Eival are. And Ulalanu Omer, it says also, and in that pasuk V'goymer, it says, Eitzel Eilene Moira, they're near Eilene Moira. Okay, Alanu Emer in Parshas Lech Lecha it says Vayavra Avram Ba'aretz. Avram Avinu was traveling through the land, and he traveled ad Mekom Shechem until Shechem ad Eilen Moira, until the oak of Moira, and we have Eilen Moira and Shechem connected by Avram Avinu Gzeir Shava to the Eilene Moira in Parshas Re'eh, so we know that it's the one by Shechem. Beautiful. Ma Eilen Moira Hamar Lalon Shechem, just like the Eilen Moira by Avram Avinu is in Shechem, so Af Eilen Moira Hamar Kan, so to the Eilen Moira over here in Parshas Re'eh by Har Grizim and Har Eival is Shechem. Beautiful. Then Shisha Shvatim Alul L'Reish Har Grizim, 6 Shvatim went to the top of Har Grizim, V'Shisha Shvatim Alul L'Reish Har Eival, 6 Shvatim went to the top of Har Eival. So which Shvatim was it? So the Har Grizim is the mountain of the blessing. the blessings were to the side of Har Grizim, and the curses we're going to see were to the side of Har Evel. So to Har Grizim, the Torah says the ones that bless should be Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Yosef, and Binyamin. And Har Evel is going to be Reuven, Gad, Asher, Dan, Naphtali, and Zvulun. Those 6 Shvatim. So there was 6 and 6, 12 Shvatim altogether. However, then says the Mishnah, V'Kohen and V'Alvim v'Ha'aron emdim lamata. The Kohen and the Levim and the Aron were all in the middle. 1 second. It's a contradiction. You said that the pasuk says that Shevet Levi was on Har Grizim, and now you're saying that Shevet Levi is in the middle. So the Gemara is going to discuss this, and the Gemara is going to say, Taka, Shevet Levi was not on Har Grizim, but there were 6 Shvatim still on Har Grizim because Yosef, who was on Har Grizim, is 2 Shvatim. It's Ephraim and Menashe, but the Levim were Taka in the middle. So we're going to discuss that Daf Lamed Vav, I think. So all these chevra were in the middle. Hakoyanim Akif and Asaron. In the middle was the Aron. The Koyanim were surrounding the Aron. V'Alvim is Hakoyanim. The Levim surrounded the Koyanim. And then V'Chol Yisrael Mikana Mikana. The entire Jewish nation was on this side and that side. Har Grizim and Har Evel. And Shenemar, like it says in the pasuk in Yeshua in Perek Ches, V'Chol Yisrael is king of all the Jewish nation and the elders, V'Shoiterav and the officers, V'Shoftav and the judges. Imdim Mizeh Mizeh were standing on this side and that side. The Aron V'Gomer of the Aron, and they all stood on the respective mountains. Then the Levium who are standing in the middle, Hafchu Pneim Klape Har Grizim, they turned their faces towards Har Grizim, Upaschu B'Bracha, and they started blessing the nation. So it's important to point out that we had in the source sheets we learned in Iyun together, and from Dvarim Perek Chav Zayin, Parshas Kisavai, we had the Torah says exactly what they should say, brachos and klalos. But then when the Torah says exactly what to say, it only says curses. Arur ha'ish asher yasa and arur ha'ish v'chulu v'chulu. Arur maklav v'imoy arur masik v'oreo. It's a bunch of curses, 11 of them. So the Mishnah's Chiddush is that in the pasuk it says you should have blessings and curses, but when it actually spells out what they should say, it only says curses. So the Mishnah says that they said exactly what the curses are, just they switched one word. Instead of saying Arur ha'ish, they said Baruch ha'ish. And then after that, everyone said Amen, and then they would go to the Arur ha'ish. They did the blessings and the curses, so they had to switch some of the words in the psukim. So Paschu b'Bracha, they started blessing, and they would say Baruch ha'ish, blessed is the man Asher lo yasa pesel u'maseicha, who does not make idols and statues. As you can see the pasuk, and everyone together, Har Grizim and Har Evel together would both answer Amen. Then Hafchu Pneim Klape Har Evel, then the Levium would turn and face Har Evel, and they would say Upaschu B'Klal, they would start cursing. Cursed is the man who does make these idols. And everyone would answer Amen. Until they finished all 11 brachos uklales. There was 11 blessings, 11 curses, so 22 statements altogether. Afterwards, they brought the stones, which stones we're going to see in the Gemara. They built the Mizbeach on Har Evel. They plastered it. And then after they built the Mizbeach, they wrote all of the entire Torah in 70 languages. Like it says in the pasuk, Bayer Hativ, that the Torah that they write has to be explained well. And we're going to see in the Gemara that Bayer Hativ means it should be in 70 languages. Then they took apart the Mizbeach, they took back the stones, they came, turning to Amud Beis, and they spent the night in their place. What was their place? The Yidden were staying in Gilgal. Gilgal is right opposite the Yarden, before Yericho even. It was called Gilgal because Hashem said in Gilgal that Hayom Galoisi Cherpas Mitzrayim Aleichem, I have rolled off the shame of Mitzrayim from upon you when the Yidden all got circumcised and they brought the Korban Pesach. So it's called Gilgal Milashon rolling. Hashem rolled off Mitzrayim from upon us. And they were staying in Gilgal then, and that's where they made the wars on Ai and Yericho from, and they came back to Gilgal. They set up the stones over there. More details to come in the Gemara. Beautiful. Okay, Gemara. Ready? So now the Mishnah itself started to tell us how we know certain mitzvahs, how they have to be in Lashon HaKodesh, but it didn't give us the source of the mitzvahs that are in B'chol Lashon, that are in any language. Says the Gemara, follow along the first line. Parsha Sotah Menalan. How do we know that Parsha Sotah could be in any language? The Chsiv, it says in the pasuk, "V'amar hakohen la'isha," or like Rashi amends the Girsa, "V'amar el ha'isha," that the kohen has to say to the woman, "B'chol lashon shehi shemas." Any language that she is able to understand, he has to say it to the woman, and if he's saying it to the woman, that means she has to be able to understand what he's saying. So it could be in any language that she can understand. So this is really sort of a raya for Tosfos. For Tosfos' Girsa, that's Bilshoy Num. It has to be that she understands. It's not about just saying it in any language. It's about saying it so that you can understand what you're saying. Okay, Tanur Rabbanan says the Braisa Mashmiin Oisa b'chol lashon shishay mas. We have to tell the woman the psukim of the Sotah, the Allah and the Shvuah, in any language that she's able to understand. What do we have to tell her? Number one, 4 things. Alma hi shoisa. Why is she drinking this water? What happened to her that she's drinking this water? Says Rashi, Almahi Shoisa. It's about Pritzos. He teaches her that the how did we get here that you're so degraded in the Beis Hamikdash over here, and this whole ceremony is happening that you have to drink this water to test whether you cheated on your husband or not. It comes through kinoi and stira. Your husband warned you and you secluded yourself. You acted in an unsneous way, and therefore this is how we came to today. And uvamohi shoisa, with what is she using to drink? We're going to see that it's a mekida shel cheres, that it's this disgusting vessel that we spoke about in the second parak. Alma nitmeis, what exactly caused her to cheat on her husband? Possibly, which is her acting foolishly, childishly, schoik and yaldos. And the whole point of why you're saying these things is so that all the women that are standing by, we learned earlier in the Masechta that the women that are in the Beis Hamikdash should watch the process of the Sotah so that they could take muster to themselves, so that they could take a lesson to themselves, not to act in a childish way. Uva mo'i nitmeis, and how exactly was she defiled? So the Kohen is coming to say that the halachas of which kind of defilement will the water kill her. If she was raped, the water won't kill her. If she did it willingly, then it will. And all this is in order what? So 1 second. So says the Gemara like this. Alma hishoisa. Alma hishoisa. Why is she drinking this water? Aliske kinoi stira. Because there was kinoi, there was stira, and she still acted on sneeze. So Alma hishoisa. What's she drinking? B'mekiddush shel cheres, this earthenware vessel. Alma nitmeis. How did she become defiled? Because of childishness and frivolousness. And how exactly was she defiled? Either b'shoigeg, was it by mistake? Was it on purpose? Was it forced? Was it willingly? And that's going to make a difference whether the waters are going to check her. And why do we have to ask her about? Why do we have to tell her, inform her what the water is going to kill her about? It's kidei. In order not to make a bad name for the Sotah waters, because if she's going to drink the waters and she's not going to die from it, so she's going to say, oh, the Sotah waters don't work. And then women are not going to be scared of the Sotah waters. But we inform her exactly what's going to kill her or not before we say that if you were forced or if it was by mistake, it's not going to kill you. So if she did it by mistake and she knows that, so she's going to know that the Sotah waters did work. It's not supposed to work. It's not supposed to kill you if it was by mistake. Beautiful. That is Sotah. We're done with Sotah, guys. We're done with the topic of Sotah until we're going to see maybe Daf Mem Zayin. We're going to mention it one more time. Okay. Vidoi Meiser. Next, we had the mitzvah of Vidoi Meiser declaring that you did all the Meisers properly, that you gave Truma Meiser, Meiser Rishon, Meiser Sheni, Meiser Rani, and they're out of your house after you did Bir Meiser. So Manolan, how do you know it could be in any language? The Chesiv, it says in the pasuk, "Ve'amarta lifnei Hashem leikecha." You should say before Hashem your God, "Be arti hakodesh min habayis." I have obliterated. I have got rid of all the kodesh, all the holy from my house. And then v'yolef amira mi Sotah, and we're going to learn amira, the word v'amarta from Sotah. Gzeir shava b'chol lashon she'omer can be in any language. Yeah, by Sotah it says v'amar hakohen ela isha, and by Vidoi Meiser it says v'amarta lifnei Hashem leikecha v'amarta. It's in any language. Beautiful. So now says the Gemara, Amar le Rav Zvid la'Abaye. Rav Zvid told Abaye, "Ve'leilaf amira milvim." Why are you learning the word amira? You have ve'amarta by Vidoi Meiser. Why would you learn it from Sotah? Why don't you learn it from the brachas uklalis? Where by brachas uklalis, what does it say? It says ve'anu halvim ve'amru. It also says ve'amru. So Ma'ala Lashon HaKodesh, and you should learn that just like Brachas HaKodesh has to be Lashon HaKodesh, Afkam Lashon HaKodesh, so too Vidoi Meiser should be Lashon HaKodesh. So it says, Abaye back to Rav Zvid, Danan Amira Gredasa Me Amira Gredisav, and Danan Amira Gredasa Me Aniya Va'amira. We're going to darshan a pasuk where it says Amira alone, from another pasuk that it says Amira alone, and we're not going to use, which is Vidoi Meiser to Sotah, where over there the only word described to say is Ve'amarta, or Ve'amar HaKoyen. And we're not going to learn it from Brachos Uklalis, where over there it's not just Aniya, it's not just Amira, it's Aniya and Amira. It's Ve'anu Alvim Ve'amru. It's two descriptions of saying. So we're going to go to the more similar one, which is Sotah, and we're going to learn that Vidoi Meiser could be in any language. Tanya, we have a brayso that tells us, Reb Shimon ben Yochai said, Adam Emer Shivchei B'Kol Namuch. A man says his praise in a low voice, Ugnusei B'Kol Ram, and his embarrassment in a loud voice. How do we know this? Shivchei B'Kol Namuch is praise in a low voice, Vidoi Meiser. From Vidoi Meiser is all talking about how you did all the halachas properly, you kept all the mitzvahs, you got rid of all the meisters and all the trumas from your house, and that's Shevach, it's praise that you kept the mitzvahs properly. And over there it just says V'amarta, and you should say, there's no indication that it should be loud. And then Ugnusei B'Kol Ram, and Ugnusei B'Kol Ram Mikra Bikurim, from Mikra Bikurim, we find that you should say your embarrassment in a loud voice. By Mikra Bikurim, it says Anisa ve'amarta. It says that you should answer and say two lashonos of saying, which indicates it should be in a loud voice. Just like by Brachos Uklos, it says clearly Kol Ram. But by Mikra Bikurim, it says ve'anu ve'anisa ve'amarta, so that indicates that it's in a loud voice. And how is Mikra Bikurim Gnus? Why is that embarrassment? Because in Mikra Bikurim we mentioned Arami Avedavi, we mentioned Lavan HaArami, our Zayda, who was a very bad guy. He tried to kill our other Zayda, Yaakov Avinu. And therefore, but Reb Shimon ben Yochai says that your Gnus should be in a Kol Ram from Mikra Bikurim. Okay, beautiful. But now asks the Gemara, Gnusa b'Kol Ram, is it true that Reb Shimon ben Yochai holds that you should say embarrassing things in a loud voice? It's not true. Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Mishum Reb Shimon ben Yochai. Rabbi Yechanan said in the name of Reb Shimon ben Yochai, how come the Chachamim established that we should say the Amidah, we should say Shemana Esrei quietly? It's in order, Kidei Shalei Levaya should say Ravera, in order not to embarrass those that sin. During Shemana Esrei, we confess our sins and Slach Lanu. And in order not to embarrass people, we said that everyone should say Shemana Esrei quietly, so that no one's embarrassed that he's the only one saying it quietly because he doesn't want people to hear his Averis. People know that the guy did a sin. So everyone says it quietly not to embarrass people. And how do I know that you shouldn't embarrass people? The Torah did not make any difference between the place of a chatas and an oila. The karbanis of kachay kachim, which there's three categories of the holiest karbanis, the holy of the holies, oila, chatas, and asham. Kachim kalam is just the shlamim and all the similar karbanis to that. But oila, chatas, and asham are all kachay kachim. How come the Torah said that? And kachay kachim, the halacha is that they need to be shechted on the northern side. A chatas elvir is kachay kachim. Yeah, every chatas is kachay kachim. Asham is kachay kachim, and oila is kachay kachim. And all those three kinds of karbanis have to be shechted on the northern side of the mizbeach. So the Gemara is saying, how come Reb Shimon ben Yochai is saying, how come the Torah didn't make a difference in the place? How come the Torah said that an oila should be in the northern side? It's in order. It's in order that people that did a sin should not be embarrassed. That someone sees that this guy's carbon is being shechted on the north, they know this guy did a sin. But since the Torah said that an oila should also be on the north, so you don't know. Maybe he did a sin. Maybe he's just bringing an oila. An oila is a donation to the Eibishter. So says the Gemara, amends the Gemara, Leite Magnusai, so we have to change the version that we had from Reb Shimon ben Yochai before, that your embarrassment should be in a loud voice, because obviously Reb Shimon ben Yochai does not hold that you should be embarrassed. It's Leite Magnusai, don't say your embarrassment, Ela Emat Sara, you should say your distress in a loud voice. And why is Mikra Bikurim distress? Because it talks about all the hardships that the Yidden went through, and it talks about how the Yidden are this hated nation that everyone's oppressing, about anti-Semitism, about Mitzrayim and Lavan, how everyone tried to kill us. And there you should say it in a loud voice. Kitatanya, how do we know that you should say your tsar in a loud voice? We have a brisa that says, V'tamei tamei yikra, by a Mitzera, when a Mitzera sits outside the camp during his the days that he's tamei, so the Torah says that he has to call out to everyone walking by that he is tamei. V'tamei tamei yikra, he has to say, I'm tamei. And why does he have to call out that he's tamei? We should tell his distress to everyone, so that people that hear about it could ask for mercy for this guy. We're mamish middle of the Amud.
What are the first three words?
Rachamim gufa amar Rabbi Yechanan. That's where that line. It's on the second half. Yeah. So now gufa, beautiful. So we have to change it to tzare. Beautiful. So now gufa, in what we just explained, Amar Rabbi Yechanan mishum Reb Shimon ben Yochai. Reb Shimon ben Yochai said, how come we established that you should say Shemana Esrei quietly, in order not to embarrass those that sin? Why? How do I know that you shouldn't embarrass people that sin? Because the Torah itself doesn't want to embarrass people that sin. Because the Torah put an oila in the north, just like a chatas and an asham, in order that they shouldn't be embarrassed, that they see that their carbon is being brought in the north. But now ask the Gemara, 1 second. Veloi, is it true that we don't know the difference between a chatas and an oila? Obviously, we know the difference. By the blood, dam chatas lamaila. When you sprinkle the blood of an animal chatas, you put the blood on the top side of the mizbeach. The mizbeach had a chuta sikra, a red line around it, delineating what the top of the mizbeach is and the bottom of the mizbeach is. Whenever the Torah says karnes ha-mizbeach, it means that it should be on the top. Whenever it doesn't, it says it should be on the bottom side of the mizbeach. And chatas oila, the animal chatas, is sprinkled on the top of the mizbeach. V'dam oila, the blood of an oila animal is lamata, is on the bottom of the mizbeach. So we do know the difference between someone who is sinning, and if the Torah is being careful not to embarrass those that sin, it should put the carbon. It should say that the blood should be in the same place also. Says the Gemara, Hasam kohen hu diyada. No, it's not pshat that we're embarrassing the sinner, because no one else knows where the blood is going except for the kohen. The kohen anyways needs to know what kind of carbon it is, because when he's shechting the carbon, he has to have in mind what carbon it is. So the kohen is anyways going to know whether this guy sinned or not, whether it's a chatas or a naila. And since it's just sprinkling the blood on the mizbeach, not everyone knows what blood he's sprinkling on the mizbeach. Could be you don't even see it because you're standing on the other side of the Beis HaMikdash. So the blood, it's just the kohen that knows about it, and we're not worried that it's going to embarrass the sinners. Okay. So then asks the Gemara, but I'll give you a different question that we know. A chatas, a carbon chatas has to be a girl, a female animal. Oila has to be a male animal, so there people can know the difference. If they see you rolling up to the Beis HaMikdash with a girl animal, they know you did a sin. So Hassam says the Gemara, mechasya ba'alya, no. By the animals, the tail covers over the genital area, so people aren't going to know if it's a boy or a girl, unless their mom is trying to look, unless you're picking up the animal's tail. But if you're just walking with your animal into the Beis HaMikdash, no one's going to know if it's a boy or a girl. So says the Gemara, Tenach kivsa. So that'll make sense if you're bringing a sheep for a chatas. However, se'ira ma'ikol meimar, if you're bringing a goat, which a goat does not have a tail, and they'll be able to tell if it's a boy or a girl. So if a chatas could be either a kivsa or a se'ira, and if you're trying to bring a se'ira, then they'll know if it's a boy or a girl. So Hassam says the Gemara, no. When you bring a chatas, you have a choice to bring a kivsa or a se'ira. If you don't want to be embarrassed, bring a kivsa. It's going to have a tail, and no one's going to be able to tell what kind of animal it is, if it's a boy or a girl. But if you're going to decide to bring a se'ira, if you're going to bring a goat, so then Hassam iu dekam michsif nafshe. It's the guy who's embarrassing himself, because no one asked you to bring a se'ira. The Torah said, I'm giving you an option to bring a kispa. You can bring a kiss, but you're not going to be embarrassed. If you want to embarrass yourself and bring a se'ira, but you can't blame that on the Torah, because the Torah gives you another option. So now asks the Gemara, because the kamichs of nafshei the boy lately so I could have brought a kivsa, but kamaisi se'ira, and he decides to bring a se'ira. But now asks the Gemara, chatas da'avedes kechavim deloi sagi delav se'ira ma'ikol meimar. By a chatas of a person that serves over the zara by mistake, the Torah says in Parsha Shlach that it has to be a se'ira. He can't bring a kivsa. It has to be dafka, this goat. So over there, you don't give me another option, and everyone's going to know that this guy sinned. So says the Gemara, Hassam, in the case of a chatas of avodah zara, nichsef v'nezel, he should be embarrassed. Since it's such a big sin, the Torah wants him to be a little bit embarrassed, that people know that he did a sin, and in order, it's all part of the kapara for avodah zara, for this grave sin.
Every sin that anyone ever did was got a carbon, or some stuff didn't, some stuff.
If a person does a sin that carries a chiyuv kares, which means that if he would have done it on purpose, he would have got kares, but he does it by mistake, he brings a carbon chatas. That's how a carbon chatas works. So Maseches Krisos talks about it. That if a person did any one of the 36 averos that carry the penalty of kares by mistake, he brings a carbon chatas. Okay, the most common one, which the Gemara a lot of times calls it a chatas chelev, because the most common chatas that people would bring was for chelev. Chelev is the fats of the animal that are not kosher. Eating chelev in an animal carries the chiyuv kares, and since it looks very similar to the kosher fats, there's shuman, which is kosher fats, chelev, which is unkosher fats. They look similar, so now we have professional people that are working on it, but Amal, they used to shech their own karbanos, so it was easy to mistake shuman for chelev. So it was the most easiest sin to commit. No, today you have professionals that are working on the animals, and they're going to make sure. But before, every single person had in their house their own animals. They would bring it to the shochet.
Still exists, not to eat.
Yeah, of course, chelev. You're not allowed to eat chelev from a kosher animal, from a kosher domesticated animal. Chelev is usher. If it's a non-kosher animal, there's no isser chelev. Over there, if you eat it, you're chayav for eating a non-kosher animal, but that's not a chiyuv kares. It's just a chiyuv malchus. Either way, point is, we don't say our embarrassment in a loud voice, but we say things that are bothering us in a loud voice, so that other people could pray for us. A beautiful lesson. Okay, now Kriya Shema, the last two dots on the Amud. Kriya Shema can be in any language. Medalan, how do we know this? Tichsiv, it says in the pasuk, Shema Yisrael. The first words of Kriya Shema are, listen Israel, listen, hear O Israel. B'chol lashon shata shemea. You have to understand. Shema means to understand. Hearken, hear what I'm saying. Okay, so that's any language. Tana Rabbana, now we bring a brisa. Kriya Shema kichsava. Kriya Shema has to be said in the language that it's written, which means it has to be in Lashon HaKodesh. It's written in Lashon HaKodesh, you have to say it in Lashon HaKodesh. Divrei Rebbe, that's Rebbe's opinion. However, the Chachamim say, B'chol Lashon, it could be in any language. So my time with the Rebbe, what's Rebbe's reasoning? Amar Krav v'hayu. The pasuk says, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ela, that these words that I'm telling you today, alav avecha, should be on your heart, should be v'hayu, they should be b'havayasan yuhu, they should be exactly as they are. Don't change them, they should be as they are right now. And as they are right now they're in Lashon HaKodesh, the way it's written in the Torah, so say it in Lashon HaKodesh. Rabbanan Amar, Rabbanan say no. Rabbanan say, Amar Kra Shema. The pasuk says Shema, you have to listen, you have to hearken. Any language that you can understand it. So now, Rabbanan Nami Haksiv Vahayu, to the Rabbanan, what's the point of the pasuk Vahayu? What do they do with that pasuk that says it should be as it is? So the Chachamim learn from there that you can't read Shema out of order, you have to read it in order, every pasuk in order. If you read it out of order, you're not Yitzah. That's Vahayu. It should be as it is right now, as it is in the Torah in this order. So now Rabbi, how does he know that you can't read Shema out of order if he uses Vahayu to teach you that it should be in Lashon HaKodesh? It says Vahayu hadvarim ha'ela. The Torah could have said Vahayu dvarim ha'ela, and words should be these words. But hadvarim, the words, the extra hay teaches you that what? The extra hay teaches you that it should be hadvarim in this order. The Rabbanan, what do they do with hadvarim, with this limud of the extra hay? Dvarim hadvarim le mashmalahu. They don't darshan the extra hay. They don't darshan extra letters. They darshan extra words, but not extra letters. So now, Rabbi Nami Haksiv Shema. So now, according to Rabbi, who says that it should be in Lashon HaKodesh, what does he do with the word Shema? Shema means to listen, to understand. So what does he do with the word Shema? Rabbi says that the word Shema teaches you that you have to hear what you're saying. You can't whisper Shema until you can't hear it. It can't be too quiet that you can't hear what you're saying. You have to hear the words of Shema that you're saying yourself. That's Shema, you have to hear it. The Rabbanon Savri. So now the Rabbanon, what do they do with that limud about having to hear what you're saying? So Savri law, they hold of the opinion that's in the beginning of Maseches Brachos that someone that reads Shema and did not hear what he's saying, he is Yaitza. So the Chachamim say that there's no mitzvah to hear what you're saying in Shema, as long as you're saying it. Even Koiler lo yishameh, as we're going to learn in the Gemara maybe, even if you can't hear what you're saying, you're still Yaitza Shema, and therefore Shema teaches you any language. It doesn't teach you that you have to listen. Beautiful. So now, ask the Gemara, maybe Rabbi holds, turning to Daf Lamed Gimel, that Kol HaTorah b'chol lashon nemra, that the entire Torah is said in any language. And Rashi says, Kol HaTorah b'chol lashon nemra, that any time you lean in shul, it should be in any language. And how do we know this? Because the Isal Kadatach b'lashon HaKodesh, if you're going to tell me that according to Rabbi, the Torah has to be read in Lashon HaKodesh, V'hayu because of Rahman Alamali. Why would the Torah need to specify that Shema should be in Lashon HaKodesh? V'hayu b'avayos and Yehu. If everything's in Lashon HaKodesh, so obviously it's in Lashon HaKodesh. So obviously, according to Rabbi, the fact that the Torah says in Shema specifies that it should be in Lashon HaKodesh teaches you that the rest of the Torah is not in Lashon HaKodesh and it's saying just Shema is. So there's a very, very large discussion up here because Rashi says that the entire Torah is in B'chol Lashon, according to Rabbi, maybe, in the Havamina now. Likris B'veis HaKnesses, that when we read in Shul, it could be in any language. The Shaila is, laning the Torah in Beis HaKnesses is not a mitzvah d'oraisa, it's a mitzvah midrabanan. The Torah didn't say that you have to lane the Torah in Shul every week. And therefore, so why are you saying Kol HaTorah B'chol Lashon Nemra, but over here the Torah specifies the laning in Shul is not a mitzvah. So the Rishonim discuss it, that either it means laning of Parshas Zachar, which midairaisa you have to lay in Parshas Zachar from the Torah once a year, or possibly it means that Kol HaTorah b'chol lashon nemara, not like Rashi says. The Rosh teaches that it means anywhere else that the Torah says to say something. So Chalitza, Mikra Bikurim, Vidoy Meiser, Parshas Sotah, all these things should be b'chol lashon, but Shema Dafka should be b'lashon HaKodesh. Yeah, so maybe Rebbe holds like that, because if not, why does it have to say v'hayu? Says Rebbe, no, I could even hold that the whole Torah is also b'lashon HaKodesh, but Shema would have to specify lashon HaKodesh. Why? Because itzrich mishum diksiv Shema. Because since the Torah says Shema, the word Shema, according to Rebbe, is teaching you that you have to hear what you're saying, but you could mistakenly think that Shema should mean that you should understand it, that Shema could be in any language. So therefore, the Torah has to write v'hayu to teach you that no, it's takeh b'lashon HaKodesh. So now on the other side, lema kasavri rabbanon kol HaTorah kula b'lashon HaKodesh nem radis HaKodesh b'chol lashon Shema because of Rahman Alamali. According to the rabbanon who said that the Torah specifies by Shema that it could be in any language, maybe they hold that the rest of the Torah has to be dafke lashon HaKodesh, and the reason why Shema it says Shema because to tell you that Kriya Shema is different, that has to be in any language, that could be in any language. So again, says the Rabbanan Itzrich, no, the Torah is going to need to say Shema over here also. Why? Even if the rest of the Torah is b'chol lashon, because Itzrich mishum diksiv v'hayu, since the Torah says v'hayu, and why the Rabbanan does the Torah need to say v'hayu to teach you that it has to be in this order? You might mistakenly think like Rabbi that v'hayu teaches you that Shema should be in lashon HaKodesh. So the Chachamim say no, Shema could be b'chol lashon from the word Shema. Beautiful. We're going to continue next time with Daf Lamed Gimel.